Hi all, welcome back to my channel. So today we'll be covering a very interesting and important topic, that is how to play around dynamic selectors so that they easily cope up with frequent layout changes on a website, or if we refresh the website or the website gets reloaded due to some reason, our selectors are intact and it does not give us any exception like selector not found exception, etc., or selector not valid, like that. So how do we do that? So we do that by introducing regular expression, rejects, or wildcard characters in our selectors, or by using CSS selectors, or by using fuzzy logic. And one by one, we'll be covering all these in the upcoming videos. So in this video, we'll be covering how to use CSS selectors, how to make CSS selectors. So we have previously earlier seen this thing, this site, and we know that it's keep on getting changes, the ID, the text box, the layout even keeps on getting changed. As I click on submit, the layout would change. Again, I click on submit, the layout would change. And we've covered in the previous video that with the help of anchor base, we can achieve this, we can fix this, we can automate this thing, because anchor base works like that. It first identifies this field name, label name, and then corresponding to that, it types into or it clicks. But then why is this CSS selector or any of this dynamic selector logic has been introduced? What is the need if we can achieve it with the help of anchor base? So the need is, if we use this particular thing, the 3 or 4 things which I have told you, the performance and the speed would be tremendously improved. Because if you talk about anchor base, the control first locates that particular label name or text name, and then corresponding to that it types into and it clicks, so which results in a little more time for the bot to type or for the bot to click. But if we use all these things, CSS selectors and fuzzy logic, so it would directly click onto that field or would directly type into that field, saving us the time and providing us an improved performance. So now, without further ado, let's see the demo. Let's see how to achieve this thing. So as this is UI Explorer, and I'll click on first name, suppose, to type here, and we see our ID would be there, which is obviously dynamic, and as we refresh the browser, it would get changed and we would not be able to use this ID thing. So as for now, it's getting validated, but if we refresh the browser, it would not be validated. So we'll have to look for something which identifies this particular thing as unique, because this thing is not going to work. So now if we see from here, we'll not be able to identify any attribute which is unique. So for that, let's open the browser console by pressing F12. The browser console would open, and we'll have a look at the DOM structure or at the HTML attributes to see if there is anything, any attribute which is unique. So this is the input tag, you can see. So if you click on this, this particular thing gets highlighted, which shows that this tag represents this particular place or this particular position on the web page. And by looking at this, you'll have a little fair idea that, okay, this ng reflect name label first name is something unique, because this first name is only present once on the web page. You copy it, and to be assured that whether it's unique or not, we'll just search for this thing on the web page. So because it is an input tag, I'll write input and I'll have the square brackets, and you see occurrence is 1 of 1, which shows that, okay, this particular thing has only one occurrence on the web page, that is, it is unique to this particular web page. What if we just copy and go to our UI Explorer to see how do we place this thing in our selector? So we go in here, we'll remove this ID thing and tag input because we know that it's not unique. We'll write CSS selector because this is a CSS selector. We'll write is equal to, and in single quotes, we're gonna type what we have pasted from the browser. So here we go. And we'll close this tag. And now if we validate it, it would get validated. So let's wait for it to get validated. And now if we highlight, so we see the first name is here. Now, what if we reload our browser? Would this thing still validate the first name? So yes, it will, because CSS selector is not something that keeps on changing. And it's not that it does not keep on changing, because ID is also a sort of attribute of HTML, but it changes. So that's the reason why you have to identify something which is unique. So we have found that this ng reflect name is something unique to this particular page, and not just ng reflect name, its value, this label first name. So this whole thing together is unique. Now if we validate this thing and if we highlight, we see that the first name thing has already, the position has been changed, but it still validates it and identifies its position on the page. So to check this, let's just drag in a type into and try typing something in the browser. So we'll just be pasting this thing because we already have an attached window, so there's no need to type in the whole thing. Okay, and let's click on empty field, let's click on click before typing, and let's pass a value to this thing, and we've passed it. And okay, and let's run this thing to see if it types or not. So that is what the use of CSS selector is. No matter your page gets reloaded or multiple times or the ID keeps on changing, this thing is something which would identify it still. Now, if I talk about regular expression, so these are the three major regular expression or wildcard characters which you could use in your selectors. So this one, it indicates that starts with. So if I say something like, okay, so this would simply mean that no matter what comes next to Anmol, it has just to start with Anmol. Okay, so if I say this will also be validated, if I say this would also get validated, if I talk about this thing ends with, so this would just simply means that it must end with Anmol no matter what comes earlier to it. So if I say this thing, this would get validated. If I say this thing, this would also get validated. And if I talk about asterisk one, and if I write like this, so this means that any number of characters can come earlier to Anmol or any number of characters can come next to Anmol. The only, you could say the only requirement is that this particular string must be present. So we can use this thing in our selectors also, and let's see how do we use it. So suppose if I go to UI Explorer, we have this thing and we want to say that this ng reflect name input tag must end with first name no matter what comes earlier to it. So we'll say this must end with first name no matter what comes earlier to it. And let's try doing it for something else. We have seen the first name. Let's pick up another tag. Let's pick up suppose company name or role in company. I pick up role in company. So I see this ng reflect name, it's the same what we have just copied. What's the change? Its value is now labeled role. So what if in place of first name, if I write role, that it must just ends in role, and I do not care about what comes earlier to role thing. And if we just validate this thing and highlight, so let's see if this selector gets validated or not. If I click on highlight, so yeah, it's getting validated. So we'll be able to type in whatever we want to next to the role tag. There comes a scenario when in the child or in the current input tag which you're looking for, you will not be able to find a unique selector. So then what do you do? What should you do in that scenario? In that scenario, you can look for the parent tag or the root tag which has something unique. So if I talk about this role thing, or if I talk about this address thing, I can pick up any of these. So if I talk about this role thing, suppose, so we see, suppose as of now, let's ignore that we have this ng reflect name label role present. Let's ignore it. And if we go to this one, it's the division, the earth, just the tag above to it. It's direct parent. So if I just minimize it, you will get to know this is the parent and this is the child. So if we ignore this ng reflect name, what we see here, we see ng reflect form object, but that's not unique because it's present everywhere in all the tags. This class, it's not unique class because if I talk about the HTML, so class is not something which is unique, ID is unique. So if I go just above to it, this one, so I see this ng reflect id ss mjd, but I am not sure whether if I reload this, would this id be the same or would it change? I'll have to check it. Now, if I see this dictionary value role in company, this is something fixed because this role in company would have the same value because that's your label name. And if I talk about this ng reflect label, this also looks like unique because this indicates the same thing which is indicated here, ng reflect name label role. So it's the same thing. So suppose if I, as for now, forget this, that we have some attribute like this in input tag. So we have it here. So we'll have to make a parent tag, a unique parent tag, and with the help of that unique parent tag, I'll have to come down to the child tag, which is an input tag. So how do we achieve that thing? So if we see, we have this RPA1 field. I'll just copy this thing. So that's the tag name. I'll remove all of this and I'll say, okay, my tag is, okay. And now we have a CSS selector tag in the parent thing, which denotes this whole thing as unique. Okay. And I'll just copy it. I can pick up any of this. I can pick up this dictionary value thing, and I can even pick up this ng reflect label. It's not necessary that you'll always get two identifiers in the parent tag or one identifier or the same. You'll have to look at the HTML attribute or the DOM structure to have a guess about it. And as I've told you, to be assured, you can just search for it, whether the occurrence is only one or there are multiple occurrences of the same thing on the web page. If there are multiple occurrences, then obviously the bot would get confused that where to click or where to type. So you have to look for something unique if you want to use it. So if I just copy this thing and I'll just paste it here, okay, saying that, okay, this is ng reflect label is the label role in this particular RPA1 field tag. And the other one is that I have to reach to the, this thing, input tag of this particular parent. So if I introduce this, that I have to go to input, or I have to go to the input tag, which is the child of this particular parent. And if I try validating it, okay, the selector is not valid, okay, because we have not closed this tag. We'll have to obviously close this tag which we just opened, okay. And this whole thing, the CSS selector thing, okay, because we have picked it something from there. So this thing which we have typed, that the tag is RPA1 field. If I talk about, I am talking about this thing, the RPA1 field tag, and I type in here that RPA1 field, and then, okay, we're not indicating this thing, CSS selector. Instead, we're doing this thing, that, okay, ng reflect name, this whole thing is one, that this particular tag RPA1 field, and then we have this all particular attribute also associated to this tag only, okay. So we are indicating that it's role. And if we validate it, I hope I've closed all the, just to be sure, I'll do this thing so that, it's clear to me. And I am even using this wildcard character, that it must end in role, no matter what is earlier to it, or what is earlier to role. If it's label, it's div, it could be anything. I am just making sure that it ends in role. Okay, still the selector is not valid. I'll have a look. Ng reflect name is equal to role. Okay, now it would get validated. Not getting validated. This is something we are missing something. Okay, cool. So it's ng reflect label is equal to label role. So we were typing the wrong thing. I'll just replace this thing with ng reflect label is equal to label role. Okay. Now if I validate this thing, this would get validated. If I highlight on this thing, it will show the role in company. Okay. So this is how you do that if you do not have anything unique in the child tag, you'll have to look for the parent tag which has something unique. So this is the parent tag name, and this is the attribute of the parent tag which shows ng reflect label is equal to label role. And we see that there are two things which could be unique, this thing also. So even we can use this thing. So if I just replace this whole thing with the dictionary value role in company, it would still get validated because this is also something unique to that particular tag. And if I highlight it, it would just highlight. And if I just copy paste this whole thing into our type into and see if it works or not. So let's go and check it. So I'll replace this whole thing with what we've copied. I'll click on validate. Okay, I'll replace the value with RPA. Okay, I'll remove this highlight so that it does not cause any confusion while the bot types into, and we can even refresh so that this role in company again changes its position. So it has just shifted, and now if we try clicking on run, we'll see whether it is able to type or not, because it has even changed its ID as well as it has changed its position, but it was still able to type into. So that's how you use CSS Selector in your automation. Coming in the next video, we'll see how to use fuzzy selectors, how to use variables, and some other things which help us in making our selectors dynamic and intact so that they do not change no matter how many times we refresh the web page or how many times we reload our web page. So that's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel to get instant update about more contents. Thanks for watching.